Welcome to the Insurance Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Reid Holsworth. Joining me today is Deb Smallwood. Deb is the creator and founder of SelfPowerment. Welcome, Deb.
Thank you, Reid. It's great to be here.
It's awesome. Well, Deb, we've known each other for a number of years. We got a lot to catch up on because it's been a bit since we've talked. I'm really looking forward to this. But before we get into all the work stuff, everything you've been up to since we've last met, let's get into Deb Smallwood. Where'd you grow up, Deb? Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, I'd love to. I grew up in New Hampshire. I'm still living in New Hampshire on the seacoast in Dover, New Hampshire. Really close to Boston, close to the ocean, close to the mountains. It was a great community, a great place to grow up and even raise my daughters and now be in semi-retirement mode as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What was your family life like? How was that growing up? What did the parents do? Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. We were I was a second generation American. All four grandparents came over through Ellis Island from Greece.
Oh, wow.
So we were a Greek American family, right? We had the Greek culture, the cooking, the church, the Greek community within the Dover, New Hampshire community. And our family was filled with love and tradition and mother, father, grandfathers that really didn't talk and communicate very much. They were just the traditional Greek, grumpy old men. But lots of sisters, still close with my sister, and lots of aunts and uncles and cousins. So if you ever saw my big fat Greek wedding, that was my family, right? Full of happiness and joy and just loving life.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really cool. So what kind of stuff were you into as a child? Like, what was your favorite activity? What was little Deb Smallwood into?
I love to play. I love to play dolls. I love to play Barbie and little baby dolls. I love to play office. When I'd go to my grandmother's house, she had a desk with a calculator and a phone and a stapler and paper. It was like a mini office. And I played office, and we're talking 8, 10, 11 years old, didn't know what an office or a business was. And I loved to just ride my bike and play outside. So I was a happy child, a really, really happy child.
Sounds like you had a great family environment, happiness by the ocean, by the woods and all the great things. That's
right.
Awesome.
Skied, used to go to the beach, go to the beach every weekend. Yeah, definitely.
Any role models from back then?
No specific mentors or role models. Part of it might be just my mother, and I had very strong women all around me. My mother was a strong woman, very independent, and had a strong voice, and was a cancer survivor in the 60s and lived until in 1960s and lived to be 84 years old. And in the 60s, people didn't survive breast cancer, and she was a survivor. And I had aunts that didn't finish high school that were supervisors on the shoe shop floor. And I had aunts that ran their own business hair salons. So a lot of really strong, dynamic women. They're my role models, and I remember as a child doing a report with Amelia Earhart, and it still sticks with me to this day, and I think of it often because even though she didn't succeed, she went down somewhere, and we're still looking for her plane, right? I just remember the pictures and the footage, and I did a report on her and the bravery and the courage and the risk-taking. And it really, I think, started my motto of why not me? She said, why not be the first female? But it was really, why not me? Why can't I do what other people do?
Yeah. Well, that's definitely molded you into the person you are today, I would assume. That's awesome. That's awesome, Deb. What about difficult situations? I love to just kind of get into this background stuff. What was a difficult situation you had to overcome as a child?
Yeah, so I describe a really loving family, but my parents were divorced in 1959.
Oh, wow.
So in 1959, there weren't divorces,
Yeah, that was
and
unheard of.
especially
Yeah.
in the Greek families and the Greek communities. So that was a stigma that we had to overcome. 1959, I was 4 years old. We moved from one town to another into Dover. It was 50 miles away from my father. Our father came and picked us up every weekend, every other weekend, spent vacations with him. He was always there. He lived with his sisters and his mother. So we would go hang out, loving family, Greek community. And we had really double of everything. And the strength of my mother, when I think about my mother, the Greek traditions, you had to marry the person that your father told you had to marry. They had to be
Mm.
from a certain part of Greece. And my mother really broke a generational cycle of, I married this man, but I don't love this man, and I'm not going to stay married. And she had the strength and courage to take on, being a single parent in 1959. So there
Wow.
was a little stigma. There was maybe one other kid in school that had a divorced parent. So that was that stigma. But I think the strength of my mother and the strength and the unconditional love just pushed us through it.
That had to be really tough. I just learned not that long ago that I just blew my mind that divorced women, especially back then, had a really hard time even renting places because people wouldn't rent to them, like as if they weren't reliable. It seems like it was almost a control thing, but strange. Like that, it's got to be hard.
It was hard, yeah. And my mother worked really hard, so she was a working mother. We always had great clothes, and we went on vacations, and we were not without. A couple of times I wanted a new dress, but in the 1960s, you didn't get dresses like today. You just go on Amazon. I'm surprised she could even get a credit card back then.
Right. Like it's like somebody was telling me this not that long ago, and I'm like, like, I didn't know. I'm just ignorant to it. I was like, that's insane. Like, it's craziness. Very different today,
Very,
obviously,
and
which is great. But
and then divorce is ubiquitous in our culture today, right?
mhm.
Almost to the other extreme. It
Oh,
becomes too.
absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. So what did you want to be when you grew up?
I didn't have a target. And if you think back in the 60s and early 70s, we're talking a long time ago, right? When I went to college, you either could be a nurse, you could be a teacher, you could be a secretary, you could be a small business owner, like my aunt owned a hairdressing, or you could be a waitress, right? It was that was the roles. And I remember when I started to look into colleges, dental hygienists were starting to come up, travel agents, women were starting to break into various roles. But what my mother always told us to do is work for a company, work for a corporate. And so this is early 70s. I want you to work for a big company because they have benefits, financial security, because she never had that opportunity. The second thing was, I want you to get into computers. She had the forward, just she was reading in the newspapers and hearing on the news in the early 70s, computers are going to be a big thing. So she said, and the third was financial independence, financial freedom. Never be dependent on a man or anyone else for your financial being. Always be able to support yourself. So I took those three things almost to the extreme, and my sister did too, and have always worked really hard for all of those. So my first job was Liberty Mutual, COBOL programmer, and in technology, right?
That's crazy. So sorry, I hate to say it this way. It even sounds like bad saying it, but like a woman as a developer back then, right? It doesn't seem like that was common. How did that all go down?
Yeah, but it was really common because computers were new. in the insurance industry back, so 1978, I was hired. In the late 70s and early 80s, insurance knew that they needed to start to develop data processing centers. It wasn't even called IT back then, it was called EDP. And the only way that they could get programmers were to have training programs. So entry level programmer trainee, 20-week programs. I was paid
Wow.
$10,000, which actually was a lot of money back then. For 20 weeks, I was training to learn COBOL. And so they had couple of tests that you had to take, and it was based on aptitude or ability. I remember the tests being sequential, map your way through stop signs, and very detailed. And I'd say 50% of the people in the training program were women.
Wow.
All through the 80s, Liberty Mutual had this training program, probably until maybe 88. And so hundreds and thousands of people came through the program. And when I think about the cubicles and the floors, well, back when I started, it was just desks. We didn't even have cubicles. 50% were women.
That's wild. That's wild. It is wild. It's not like that today, which is interesting. It's like on the opposite direction, right?
Right. Because it's become very technical, because programmers were programmer analysts, were systems analysts. There weren't BAs, there weren't project managers. You did everything. You sat with the business, you developed the code. So it was different, and they were big, lofty systems or reporting. Yeah, it was, so it was different back then.
I did not know, Deb, that you started your first job was a COBOL developer. That's so wild.
And my first assignment was in work comp, and Liberty Mutual had just rolled out the first work comp policy admin system in the country. And it actually was IMS DC and DB mainframe. And it actually allowed data entry of the application of the work comp. And you could actually, it was online. Now, a lot of my peers coming out of the training program, there was just all batch reporting systems and statistical and financial. I was actually really lucky to be on something so powerful. And it was really a buggy system, and I accelerated really fast. I think as I was thinking about my career and getting ready for this, in 19 years at Liberty Mutual, I had 13 promotions. So it was programmer, senior programmer, programming analyst, senior programmer analyst, and systems analyst, and manager, assistant director. But it was the growth in terms of technology and the opportunities were incredible. And what I'm really hoping for, and I know that we'll probably get into this, is how do we replicate what happened in the 80s and all the new blood and the diversity that was in? How do we replicate that now with the beginning of AI?
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Totally. Yeah. It's kind of the new frontier, if you will, in that way.
It is.
Yeah. Before we get into that, so how long did you say you were at Liberty Mutual for?
19 years.
19 years. Wow. So then where did you kind of end at Liberty Mutual, and then where did you go from there? Because I've like, just for the audience, like I met you obviously when you were at SMA. So I've only known you since then. But like if you could like catch me up to that point, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So what happened at Liberty was I always wanted to be a consultant. I was seeing the IBM engineers come in, and then we started having KPMG and Deloitte and some of the big consulting firms. And they were saying things that I was saying, but they were an outside influence. And I said, I want to be a consultant one day. And then it got to the point at Liberty that I knew it was time to go. As you move up, there's less and less movement. I was managing 150 people, managing all their policy admin, all their sales, big development, maintenance. And, there wasn't much more room. And I had such an accelerated career. I said, and my daughters were old enough where I could start to travel. So I called up the partner at KPMG and said, I'd love to join your firm. And I had an interview. They were starting a new practice called Information Risk Management in the Boston office. Got a job. I got like a 50% pay increase. So it was a no brainer.
Yeah.
And and I made partner in 18 months.
Wow. So then what kind of stuff were you focused on then at KPMG? We started out.
What I focused on was information risk management. So it was IT audit. We worked very, very closely with the accounting and the financial auditors. And so I was on the audit side. And I learned to be a consultant, though. I learned to sell. I learned to write proposals. I learned to write deliverables. I learned how the bar in terms of perfection and spacing and look and feel and the whole everything that goes into the package of being a consultant. I learned to be a consultant. Which was an amazing experience. And again, it was, my attitude has always been, why not me? So why not me? Why not be a consultant? I pick up the phone, I call, I get the job with a significant pay increase. And then I said, I want to be a partner. Why not me? So someone said, start acting like a partner. So I acted like a partner and got promoted to a partner. I had a couple of women sponsors along the way that made me a partner. I was not happy there. It was a wrong fit for me. And then I went to a Gartner conference, and this is 2000, 2001, right before the dot-com, right? There was a person on the stage, an insurance person, presenting information about the insurance industry. And I went, I can be that. I want to be that. Why not me?
Yeah.
So I ended up taking a role as the head of the insurance practice at Tower Group, which at the time was Tower Group, not the insurance company, but it was the new type of advisory firms. So I learned to be an analyst. I learned to be a thought leader. I learned to be to write research and have a voice out in the marketplace. And then one day there was an executive coach working with me. I really had an awakening, and I really started to feel really self-powered. Not that I wasn't self-empowered the whole journey, right? And I said, you know what? I can do this myself. I can start a business. So there were a couple of people that I started Strategy Meets Action. At the time, it was Smallwood, Mikey and Associates, and we started it. Our anchor company was Insurance Company of the West. I had a non-compete for 1 year, started the company, had a non-compete, became the chief transformation officer at the Insurance Company of the West, helped them create some governance, project management, brought in a couple of big projects that were just running astray. I was able to execute and bring them, because I've always been able to execute projects and get things done. Got out of my non-compete for 1 year and then launched Strategy Meets Action. And so that's how I got into being a thought leader and an advisor.
How long were you at Strategy SMA? Sorry.
Yeah, SMA, 15 years.
15 years. Wow. 15 years.
Right. Self-funded. My business partners, Karen Furtado and Mark Brading, a lot of real sweat and tears and grind at the early years, right? And built our brand. Really proud of that accomplishment. It was great working with them, like-minded people, wonderful customers, hit the market right at the right time, and then sold it in the middle of.
I know. That's what's crazy. It's like last I talked to you, it's like, oh, yes, we sold the business to Resource Pro. Now I'm at Resource Pro. And now it's like, now I'm doing something else. So yeah, before we get into that, like tell the audience, like some of the stuff you did. Cause I got to know you many years ago when you're at SMA, like we were a customer of yours essentially. And, but explain to the audience, like, what did you guys do? Like, what was the value that SMA brings to a customer?
It was really about pushing the envelope and the thinking and the innovation thinking at carriers and vendors, right? And connecting carriers and vendors. So our customers were both. For the carrier side, we did a lot of strategy sessions with leadership teams. We did a lot of 2030 big transformational thinking. We wrote research that showed the trends and the patterns happening in the industry and trying to explain some of the shifts and changes, how technology could enable change. We had a big voice around innovation, digital, and customer experience. So I'm going to really go back. We had a conference, I think it was 2012 was our first SMA summit. And it was about 200 people. And we were defining mobile, data, social media, just really basic things back then, right? And you fast forward 12, 15 years, it might even have been 2008. We were doing that. We wheeled in 100 iPads for people to experience crowdsourcing. We were doing some really leading things there. So really about getting the industry to think differently about the business of insurance. On the vendor side, we worked with go-to-market strategies, did webinars, did a lot of strategy sessions, white papers, and things like that. Part of our overall business model was really to be a voice of influence and a voice to help really stretch the industry. And so it was just so much fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, you guys did a lot. What on the vendor side, what would you do with the vendors then, mostly?
Yeah, so we had all the core vendors. We had Clyde, as you said. We even worked with you when it was Tech Canary, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, 100%.
So Karen Furtado was the master of core systems, knew the deals, knew what the patterns in the industry. So we could give market intelligence to the vendors about the sales, what was buying, the competitive landscape, feature functions, capabilities, how businesses were making decisions. We were also helping carriers and MGAs select systems as well. We did white papers, we did webinars, speaking engagements at all the core vendors and the big conferences. We spoke at their conferences. So in the early days, we'd even help with big horizontal non-insurance vendors try to learn insurance and understand the market. So we had a lot of projects like that as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So then what? So, you just I just woke up one day and then boom, SMA was sold to Resource Pro. How'd that all go down? How'd that work out? It's interesting.
Well, it was always part of our strategy was to exit at some point. And over the years, we did have interested buyers, and it just didn't materialize. It was either a wrong fit for us or a wrong fit for them. And in the middle of the pandemic, and we were starting to think about unwinding SMA because we were all getting up in the years, right, after 35, 40 years in the industry, and started to think, what would that look like if we don't sell it? And they came with interest. So Resource Pro, significant player in the agent broker, wholesaler, MGA space, small footprint in the carrier. At the time, they felt a way to get into the carrier, BPO, it was all offshore, would be to buy a thought leadership, a company, it was really one of their first acquisitions. So a small company, to clients, relationships, strategic voice.
That makes sense.
And it felt like the right fit.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. So you're not there anymore. So you said, so what happened there? Is it you just, hey, I want to go and do my own thing. I'm over it. It's time to retire. I'm cashing out. My earnout's up. Like what? So what happened?
Yeah, I think it's a little of all of that. After running your own business for 15 years and being part of a big corporation, it was hard for me.
Mm.
It was probably hard for them having me, right? And I was there for 3 years, and I worked out my contract, and it was time for me to semi-retire. The grind of it all, right? Writing research, being a thought leader, client engagements. It was time for me to just move on. And I always wanted to write a book. And so I said, great opportunity for me to write a book, possibly be on boards. I was already on a couple of advisory board for some tech startups. And it was, as my daughters said to me, I've got two smart daughters. They said, what? Why are you still working, Mom? Like, what are you trying to prove? Like, you've done it all. You've done it all. Retire with Dad and have fun. But I can't retire. I can't. I still have that drive, that urge. Maybe it's my mother, the
Mm.
financial independence and driving and the hard work that I've just executed my whole life.
That's awesome. So what are you doing now? What's going on now, Deb? So now you keep saying I'm semi-retired and I want to get back after it. Financial independence. So what's Deb Smallwood working on these days?
Yeah, so I always wanted to write a book. So last year I announced Deb 2.0, and I put it out there on social media. Thanked the industry for thank the customers, my friends, the colleagues, because insurance is an amazing industry, and said, I've always challenged the norm, and I've always propelled forward. And why not me? Why not become an inspirational voice for women in the insurance industry and beyond? Why not write a book about women empowerment? I've been able to achieve significant roles, right? CIO, own my own business, partner at a big four consulting firm. I've powered my way through it. Let there be glass ceilings, let there be perceptions of glass ceilings, but I did it, right? And a lot of self discovery, a lot of awakening, and why not share my words of wisdom and things that I've done that help me propel to help women that may have self doubt or don't know how to get their careers to the next level. So I'm writing a book. The book is really central to the platform, but I believe that things just sort of unfold, right? You look up and out, you see opportunities, you can seize them. So I said, okay, I'm going to write a book. Got a publisher right away. Women that I had been talking to over the years, I was going to write a book on digital transformation, but
Uh,
I
uh,
sold all the IP to Resource Pro on digital transformation. And my heart has always been helping other women. So indirectly or directly, and it was really fascinating when I posted on LinkedIn, Deb 2.0. A lot of women, either privately or through uh, publicly on LinkedIn, said, "Well, you've always been an inspiration for me."
that's
So
awesome.
that was really cool, right? So what has transpired is I've developed a self-powerment model, and I'm still fleshing out the model about awakening the human being, becoming aware, aligning your voice out in the marketplace and acceptance because it's all choice. So I'm working this model. I have the model. I've actually conducted a handful of workshops. A small insurer, actually, it's $1 billion insurer, has just hired me to conduct the workshop for their leadership team because it can be gender neutral. It doesn't have to be about women.
Yeah.
I've started speaking again on this. I've had a half a dozen speaking engagements on this. And so I've got the model, I've got the book, I've created a domain, I bought the domain, I have trademarked SelfPowerment. So I've got all of this going on. In the meantime, I've hired my publisher to be a coach, and she's working with me on the details of the book. And I just signed up yesterday because I'm always learning and always wanting to improve myself. I just signed up for this elite motivational keynote speaking training.
Hmm.
I've been a speaker. I've been speaking at conferences
Oh
and
yeah,
webinars,
for
hundreds,
years.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
good, but I'm not great. So,
Mm.
so the next personal development is to be, so I can see myself next year, got a book. It's going to be a bestseller, no doubt about it, because I will make sure that that will happen and become a speaker, go out on the speaker circuit, and just help women with workshops, maybe even digital courses. People have been interested in that. In the meantime, I'm mentoring a handful of women that I never mentored before. It just all unfolded. I couldn't have planned this, and I'm having the time of my life, and I'm still traveling, spending time with my husband, spending time with my daughters and my grandchildren, and just enjoying life. So it's wonderful. I'm blessed.
That's a really awesome. I have a question. You said awakening the human. What does that mean? What does that mean to you?
We are human beings. And so I think we have to start with, as a human being, there's the human part of us, which is our physical structure, our brain, our capabilities, our experiences, our voice. We a fast runner. What are our capabilities? Maybe what are our disabilities? But that's the human part. The being is your heart and soul. It's the intuitive, it's the wisdom, it's that wise woman or that intuitive thought that comes in. And when you can separate the two and you can take a breath and you can just really feel the present moment and just be with it, and then understand that you're a physical, and then the human being then goes and does human doing. Then we have roles, right? We're mothers, we're daughters, we're executives, we may be a claims adjuster, we may go, we're a lot of different roles, but that's not our identity. Our identity is really our human being. So it's really getting awakened in awareness of this, understanding and aligning this, your human being, to the alignment of your voice out in the marketplace, because we can hear our voices, right? I can be a wise woman, I can be a taskmaster, I can be a nurturer, I can be a controller, and really being mindful of that. And then accepting reality, accepting what is going on and making choices. Too many of us, and I've sat on the fence, we're unhappy where we are, either in our job, in our relationship, and at the end of the day, we're all self powered. It's all about our choice, right?
Hmm.
Where we spend our time and what we do. So the self powerment model is really about empowering us as individuals, and making sure that we have stillness, we have clarity about who we are, we have focus where our voice and where we play, and then we have choice. So what's really fascinating is I've interviewed 50 women in the last 6 weeks in insurance. Um, and women are just amazing. Men are amazing, but women are just amazing as well. And I've learned so much from it, because I think it can really help my book, since I only have my experiences, but now I'm learning about other women experiences. So it's been really cool. So they're helping me flush out, validate my self-powerment model indirectly through the interviews. It's been incredible.
Yeah. Do you think that um, everything is somewhat of a manifestation? What do you think about that? It's
Oh, I
kind of like
do.
you're saying. Yeah.
Oh, oh, absolutely. So think about it. When I was at KPMG, I said I want to be a partner, and I
Hmm.
became a partner because I lived it. I thought it. I visualized it. I shut my eyes. Right. I could breathe it and
Yep.
believe it, and believe in
100%.
myself. Um, then I went, I want to be that Gartner analyst. And I became a Gartner analyst. I became a thought leader in the marketplace. I mean, it takes a little luck. It's opportunities, right? You have to seize them. You have to work
Oh
hard.
yeah, you got to, yeah, 100%, totally.
Definitely a manifestation. Starting my own business, with my business partners, selling, it was in, and how that all played out we had some expectations in terms of the agreement, and we talked about it. I put them on a board in front of me, and it just played out right to that. And they say that it's not wanting or
Mhm.
driving, it's being with it and acknowledging that you already have it and be with it. So there's no barriers, and it is manifestation. This book, this journey, this platform is all unfolding. And then when things unfold in front of you like this with new opportunities, you're in the right space. So I know I'm writing a book, the self-powerment journey, for myself, for my daughters, for my granddaughters, for my legacy, right? To help women. But it's also, I'm going back to my mom who broke a generational cycle,
Mhm.
and the courage that she had at that time. I can hear her voice through this. So there's a lot of passion and emotion why I'm doing this.
Yeah, that's awesome. I truly believe exactly what you just said, that everything is a manifestation, and I truly believe what you just said, that you have to really know it. It's not even believe it. It's just it is, and you have
It
to have
is.
that. I think where people fall short is they lack the self confidence to know it and to believe it, believe it in themselves in that way. I think that when people talk about, oh, everything's a manifestation and whatnot, they think that you can sit here and you pray or whatever it may be, that this is going to come true, but it's in the universe's time. It's not necessarily always in your time, but it does play out long term. And like those vision boards and all those things that people do, it's very, very true. It does happen 100%. And like I could point back to something that I did when I was in college, where I wrote out, at this age, I want to do 1, 2, 3, X, Y, Z. I like stumbled across it like a couple years ago. And I'm like, holy shit, all this came true, but I believed in it. I believed in myself. Right. And I saw it. It's like your vision is part of it. 100%. And I think it's just so many people, they kind of hold themselves back because they don't believe in themselves that way. Or to be fair, they may be pushed down as well, which is, which can happen, right?
Right. It's the noise in your head, right? So I loved what you said. You have to be with it and believe it, and believe that it exists today. And back to the human being, the being is connected with the universe,
Mm.
right? It's
Yes.
your spirit, it's your energy. It's not the noise, it's the in your heart and soul, the answer to really tough questions, right? It's the wisdom that you have within. And when the manifestation, so the model that I have on self-powerment, a lot of it all started with the premise. I want to show women, it could be men too, right? But
Mhm.
show women how to shut the noise in the head. How do you shut down the noise? And part of that is just being in the present moment.
Yeah,
It's
but hold on, but that is way easier said than done. And a lot of people don't even know what true being in the present moment is. Most people have never meditated. They don't know what that true, like, to truly be there, to be there one with the breath in the present moment, not reacting, having the thoughts fly by, watching them, not reacting, letting them go by, this whole thing. Most people don't, but consciousness is expanding in a major way now. And so people are now getting smarter and smarter about it. But it's like in our culture, I'll say, you don't hear that as much. It's happening, but you don't hear it as much.
right. So one of my objectives of the book is to bring that to the corporate world, almost
Mm.
disguised as self-powerment, right? Because there's you don't have to get spiritual, and you don't have to do all. I went to an Eckhart Tolle, who is a spiritual teacher on present moment. He's all about present moment, right? And it's shutting down the noise, the past or the future, all the noise in your head and your ego. And I'm actually a certified teacher of presence.
Oh,
I took
wow.
a 6-month course last year. It's really exciting. But how do I make that business savvy and worthy, right? And how do I get people to just take a breath and understand all we have right now, Reid, is you and me right now talking.
Mm-hmm.
That's all there is. The past is memories, and
Mm-hmm.
the future hasn't happened yet. So we can worry about the future. It's not going to change the future. And we can fret and regret and be saddened of the past. So I have different techniques that I've learned over the years to catch and release. I mean,
I love
I
that. Catch and release. I love
really,
that. Yeah.
how do you feed and fuel your human body? How do
Mm-hmm.
you control your voice? So let's say you're in a conversation, you're ready to go into a big meeting. Take stock in your capabilities and your belief, right? Try to catch and release any self-doubt. Know what voice you're going to go in there with. Is it a taskmaster? Is it a wise woman? Is it an influencer? Understand the voice in the meeting. And then in the meeting, and it happens to me still, sometimes I'll be in a meeting and I just, I lean in, the tough Deb comes out, the real taskmaster. What do you mean we're missing target dates? Or that tone. And sometimes I can't catch myself, but at least I'm aware that I can't stop myself, but at least I'm aware that I'm doing. So part of this whole journey of just self-empowerment is just awareness,
Oh yeah,
right?
well, yeah. Awareness is another one. Way easier said than done.
I've been on this for 20 years. What I'm trying to do is trying. I want to offer like a jumpstart kit for people so they don't have to
Yeah.
wait through the 20 years. So it sounds like you've done some reading and research
Oh,
and
I've done so much work around all of this stuff. I could talk for hours and hours about this. Yeah, I am very aware. I am a very aware person. It took me a lot of years to get there. I meditate every day, yoga every day. It's funny when my one of my good buddies, Joel, when I started to get into all this, he's explaining meditation to me, and he's like, meditation is like if you're chopping wood and the only thing you're thinking about is chopping wood. I'm like, that is impossible. What are you talking about? Like, my brain, I have so much going on all the time in this mind. Like, to quiet the mind enough to be able I'm just chopping. Like, it's like blew my mind. I get it now, but like that's impossible. And so no, I've done a lot of self work. I've done the hard work, and for a number of years, and yeah, I'm a different person because of it. And what's interesting, as you become actually aware and aware, true awareness, it's you start to see everything in a different way, and you start to truly understand like what we're talking about through manifestation and whatnot. It's and you start to shed things in life. You start to shed addictions and things, and not like I had like really bad addictions, but like there's things that you start to recognize and habits and stuff that we have as humans have learned over so many years, things that we need to quiet the ego down on, right, and battling that wolf sometimes in ways, but also comforting it, and knowing that ego is there to protect you in ways. And so some of this, people that may be listening to this, like this is some woo woo like shit, but no, this is very, very real. And in so many other cultures, this is part of life. And in our culture, it hasn't been so much, but it's getting there. Like consciousness is growing in a major way, and you're seeing it. It's so yes, I've done a lot. And I truly believe in it, and I've seen so many lives change in a better way just using some of these methods that you're talking about here. I think it's awesome.
I,
Um,
I love hearing this from you, and it does change. You become more aware, like of a flower, or just a breath,
mhm.
or the cutting of wood, even if it's just for one swing of the axe that you actually experience it. It's for that moment. It's fulfilling, right? And that's where I'm just finally there where you can shut your eyes
Hmm.
and you can just feel joy, right?
Yeah.
It's not happiness, it's just peace. So
Peace.
how do you quiet the mind? And even if it's just for 5 minutes at a time. So one practice could be when you get into the car, you'll struggle with this one probably. Just sit there for 10 seconds and just breathe,
Yeah.
right? Everyone's got 10 seconds, unless you're going in the emergency room. So, yeah, I love all of that. So, the practices that I've had over the last 20 years, in addition to executive coaches and positioning to sell a business or run a business, packaging all of that up and just try. And my goal is to enlighten and inspire women to feel self powered.
That's awesome. So let's talk about, women in leadership in insurance. Let's talk about women in insurance generally. I mean, I obviously now what I do now, I know a lot of executives at the carriers. We'll talk, carrier side, brokers too, but yeah, a majority are just kind of gut check. Majority are males, I would say, right? So obviously you're on a mission to help with that. So talk a little bit about that.
What I saw was women drop out of the workforce to have families and make decisions because being a working mom is really, really hard. And some women just decide to be a stay at home mom or have a different kind of career. So a lot of women do leave the industry in the earlier years.
Mm,
Um, then as you go up, and I felt this at Liberty, as you go up, there's less and less positions. That's the reality. That you're competing against others. And I mean, the hard truth is there are biases. And I've been in conversations. Women don't see what men see, and men don't see what women see. It's
mm,
not that men are trying to discriminate against women. It's almost, I'm going to go back to generational cycle. It's in DNA and at a cellular level. So I'm blessed with grandchildren. I have a grandson. I had daughters. I had a lot of aunts and
awesome.
female cousins, right? So now I have a grandson and I'm watching him and I'm watching my son-in-laws too. And they're amazing men, but I'm just watching the male dynamic on the football field as a 10-year-old and the camaraderie. And then I watch my granddaughters on the soccer field. The dynamics are just so different. And the male network and the mean things that girls say to each other. It's just we grow up differently, and
Girls can be very, very, very mean to each other.
hard. It breaks my heart. Was it at 8 and 9 year old what my granddaughters are hearing, and my daughters too, and me. I also think the rules of engagement are written in insurance 100 years ago. The
Mm,
role, the expectations. And so I think the rules of engagement, I think there is gender biased. And then on top of all of that, what I'm realizing is there's a lot of women that just don't want to go there. They just don't want to be part of the C suite. And then I see a lot of women in the 50-year-old that I'm interviewing and talking to now that they're not my customers and I'm writing this book, people are opening up. And women want to leave. Women want to start their own thing or start their own business.
mhm.
So, self powerment is about empowering women to just make a choice. If you feel like you're not being valued, if you feel like you don't have a voice, if you feel you can't get promoted and you want to, then leave.
Yeah, right.
Then leave. In today's world, there are choices you can leave. It's not like back in the 80s when you had to work at a company because they had you couldn't get insurance. Remember, insurance was really difficult if you had a medical condition back in the 80s and 90s, and also the benefits and the retirement packages. But now people jump. So I think we have choices. I think we have choices now. But I think it's a complex problem to solve and a complex reason, but there's a lot of competing, I think, factors. Does that, all make sense?
Yeah, 100%. It totally does. Totally does.
Yeah.
I think it just goes back to the confidence though of people to be able
Yeah.
to do that. And it's because some people don't believe that there's choices, right? They don't know. And so I think by you enabling people in that way and seeing it and, letting them be, yeah, it opens that door.
Exactly. And there are some women executives that do want to go to that C suite, and it is self confidence. It is noise in their head. It's all self doubt. And if they can shake that and manifest, right? Be the part, play the part. One woman, I said to her, get out of the details, delegate that, stay strategic, be a big thinker. When you go into those meetings, don't be in the weeds. If
Mm.
you want to play at that level, be at that level, right?
Yeah, it's so true. So
Yeah.
true. That's awesome. That's really cool, Deb. That's really, really, really awesome that you're doing that stuff. I got a couple questions on leadership for you, Deb. You're obviously a leader. What does being a leader mean to you?
Wow. I being a leader in high school or in a club or in a company, is such an important role, and you have so much influence and impact on so many stakeholders. It's like the most important role, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we all have different leadership styles, but fundamentally, you have an obligation to your company or the club or the church, right? You have an obligation to help them achieve their goals. You have an obligation to the employees that work for you to nurture them, guide them, support them, direct them, lead them, make sure you're communicating to them in really developing them. You've got responsibilities to your customers, direct or indirect, because there's always a customer on the other end. So you need to understand their voice. As a leader, you've got to be true to yourself. You have to be confident, right? You've got to be authentic. You have to really understand yourself and be able to know when to speak up and when maybe not to, what battle to fight. And then as a leader, you need to have a voice in the marketplace or in your industry or in the community, right? So it's all encompassing. It's looking at leadership. It's such a powerful role, and so many people struggle with it, right?
When in your career did you realize that you were a leader?
Very, very early. In high school, I was a natural leader. I was popular. I had a strong voice. I was confident. I was tall. Um, and I could really carry myself. And I was a class officer. I was the secretary freshman and sophomore year, and I realized I was doing all the work. And I said, well, why not me? And I became the first woman class president at the high school. And we're talking 1971. First woman president. And I was a natural leader. I led, we had a different class trip. We had a big graduation party. I gave a speech at our graduation. I ran all the fundraising. I ran all the fundraising for the yearbook. I was in every club. I was a really good student. I was just a natural leader. I didn't know, looking back, I was really naive and I really probably didn't know what I was doing. I think I was just a natural leader.
What type of leader would you say you are?
I'm a hard leader because I set the bar really high.
Well, I don't know this, but I bet you're pretty competitive too, Deb.
I'm very competitive. I like to win. Um, but, but I will support the team. I empower the team. I empower individuals to run things and make decisions, but I hold them accountable. So it's that empowerment, accountability. I give teams rope, and then when they go to hang themselves, I rescue them. Right? I don't let people fail, but I would not ask anyone to do anything I wouldn't do myself or had done myself. Right? I push hard. That's why managing people, especially today in today's world, I think I'm too tough.
Oh yeah.
I got things done, turned around a lot of projects, executed a lot of things, built a business, sold a business, ran a business, right? So
how, as an industry, how do we get more women in leadership?
I think it's a couple of things. I think the DEI movement has been just the beginning. It's been very shallow. It's been a checkbox. Like, let's have a DEI program.
Yeah, totally.
And
Yeah.
it's women and it's diversity too.
Yeah, diversity too. Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe that we have to change the cultures. We have to change our strategies. And at a board level and at a C-level executive, it needs to impact their compensation with the numbers. Easy as that. Leadership is driven by their compensation, their goals. And the goals are always around the financials of the company and maybe some projects or something like that, things that they control. So I think the second thing is grassroots. We need to almost go back to the way it was in the 80s and start to recruit high school and college interns. Diversity, right? AI would be a really great way to maybe start to have training programs. I think we have to reimagine roles and really look at the rules of engagement and start to reimagine roles. It's not the hybrid. It's not like working from home or how we judge and how we evaluate and the roles and responsibilities of job descriptions are old and stale. So I think we have to look at them with a new lens. There's research, there's case studies. When there's diversity in companies, they far exceed expectations and financials and customer experience, right? The innovation that happens, the different thinking, the looking at problems differently, the problem solving, the camaraderie, it would better, the industry would be able to leapfrog forward more seamlessly. Um, so I think it's things like that. And then I plan on empowering women, right? And maybe more women have to leave to really maybe we need to dip before we can go up. Maybe we need to show some pain and really have a strong voice in this. I don't know. Some change has to happen. I've been in the industry for 45 years.
Sure.
There's been change. The women, when I started, the women were on the floor in desks, right? And the men were all in cubicles. And I've seen progress. I've seen women in every single key leadership role in our industry in 45 years. We've played every role. Now, do we sustain it? Not necessarily. The numbers and the percents still really low, yes, but we've proven that we can play in those roles. When I started, there was a token HR, maybe executive, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that we were just nurses and teachers.
Yeah, no, that's just so wild. Like like
right. So we've come a long way.
I wasn't around then, but it like blows my mind. Like I grew up in a very diverse place too. I grew up in Southern California, and like it was just diversity everywhere, right? And so it was different. But like I don't know that, but it's I just know the stories, and just thinking about that as a woman, like you just have these like these are the roles. Like pick one of those. Like you can't do anything other than that. That just blows my mind. It's so different now, but I think it is ingrained in cultures, in certain cultures, that old kind of way in some, changing, and the ones that, like to your point, that are really excelling and really doing things and moving the needle. If you when you dig in, you'll see that diversity within there and great culture too, just a really, really good culture within that org. And like, it wasn't even until like not even 10 years ago, like culture wasn't even a thing. Like, it was, but not really, and it's just, so it's changed for the better in so many ways. But
Oh, it has. Yeah. At least we're talking about it.
yeah,
And what didn't exist when I was growing up at Liberty Mutual is, well, social media and just digital world, right? But it's the programs and the networking and the support groups. And back in the 80s, for some reason, women didn't help women.
how do you give back today? And this is giving back in so many ways. But do you do anything else outside of this, charity wise? Like what are you, what? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I give back every single day because we were talking about present moment, right? Every day I wake up and I am grateful to have another day of sunshine and another opportunity to be. And so I try really hard. I try to be thankful and grateful with every touch point I have with a human being.
Hmm.
Let it be picking up coffee at Starbucks or getting gas or whatever, going into a restaurant. I used to get frustrated if service was bad and how dare you, but now it's thank you very much. They could be having a bad day. So gratitude and grateful every piece of the day to me is giving back. I'm also very generous and I give a lot of time to a lot of the small businesses in my community. So my Pilates instructor, I help her with her business plan. My hairdresser, the women I go for massages, I feel like I'm giving them business coaching and supporting them that way, and extremely generous of my time, etc. And now I'm mentoring women and the book. I'm thinking about a charity or some organization to take some of the proceeds of what I'm doing, and I'm trying to figure out which one, but give back that way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What do you do for fun, Deb? Outside of family and stuff, what's fun? I love ripping dirt bikes in my backyard. I assume you're not really into that. Like, what are you into?
No, so including family, I love to be outdoors. I love walking. I love golfing. I love swimming. I love going to the beach. I love nature. Um, I love to do Pilates. My husband and I just started a year ago because of the semi-retirement. I'm not traveling. We're doing ballroom dancing. We have private
Oh,
lessons twice a week. And that's really fun and it's really hard. And so we're doing ballroom dancing and just really just being outdoors. That to me is fun.
that's awesome. That sounds like a ton of fun. I love all those things too. What is your favorite drink? What's your drink of choice?
Oh,
Last
it's
question.
iced coffee. Iced coffee. It's a Starbucks ice venti, cold brew, extra ice, splash of heavy cream. Love it.
That's your jam.
That's iced coffee, of course, caffeine, right?
Last question. What words of wisdom do you have for the audience, listeners, really, today in terms of having an amazing career in insurance and technology? That's a big one. It's a big one.
What an amazing industry this is, right? The people, the product, how we give back to the economy and to our customers, right? And you can just look at my career and say what an amazing career. And insurance provides incredible opportunities for everyone. And so my words of wisdom, and I mentioned this earlier, look up and out. It's all out there. And ask yourself, when you see an opportunity, ask yourself, why not me? And then tell yourself, you've got this. And then the third thing is just be with it. Believe in yourself and be with it. And just shut your eyes and smile and breathe and say, that is me. And seize the opportunities because they're all out there, especially with AI. It's going to open up all kinds of new projects, all kinds of learning, all kinds of different changes in our organization. Raise your hand and be in it.
Do you have any tattoos, Deb?
No, I don't.
You should get a tattoo that says WNM. Why not me?
Why not me? It's been my motto the whole time. That's what I wanted to write the book on. Why not me? And my publisher it's like, it's a little limiting. She goes, that's your story. I go, okay, but why not me? Right. And
Yeah.
I've given speeches on it, and people have come up and say, you're right. Why not me?
Yeah,
And
totally.
it's not why not me, a woman? It's just
Right.
why not me?
Period.
Like Amelia Earhart probably said, why not me? Why can't
Yeah.
I be a pilot? Why can't I fly around the world?
Totally.
So,
Totally.
yeah.
Well, this was awesome, Deb. Thank you so much for doing this. This is really great. You're an industry icon, and you're everything you're doing now is awesome. Semi-retired doesn't really sound like it. Sounds like you're getting after it once again. So very, very cool. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for doing this.
Oh, what a fun conversation. Thank you so much. I just love chatting with you. I miss chatting with you. So we'll definitely
Likewise.
keep the dialogue going.